Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Cedric Hawkins, and welcome to episode 16 of the CedTalks Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening at this time. My last episode with Cedric produced great numbers, and I'm just so appreciative and so glad that you all listened to it and offered me your support and feedback. And I'm going to definitely have him on the show again in the future, where we have those discussions of the Black Lives Matter movement and all that good stuff. So definitely stay tuned for that. Today's show, I have a very interesting guest. He's a lifelong wrestling fan and the main man behind the Wrestlingifs YouTube account. We both share the same interest for wrestling, and he always, watching him, dedicated me and kind of inspired me to be proud of being a fan of wrestling. And so I'm very glad to get the chance to sit down and talk with him today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, coming from Canada, I give to you Pav. Pav, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? How are you? Thank you for having me. Thank you for the little introduction, hyping me up and stuff. And man, I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir. Thank you for, taking the time out of your schedule to do this. I know you're a busy man given everything that you do, so I really do appreciate your time here talking with me today.
Yeah, man. No worries, man. I always try to make time for anything because I told you this before we started. Like, when I was in your shoes, like, I'm not saying I'm much higher than you or anything. I'm still just a normal guy. But when I was starting out, I always wanted opportunities. And if I could have had someone where I am be in my podcast, my videos, like, it would have been a lot. Didn't really happen. But, so always, like, paying it back, paying it forward. And if I can help somebody out, like, that's the least I can do. So no worries, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. And I know, before our original recording got shut down, I'm glad I caught it in the beginning, but we had talked about how I had, started kind of being, proud of being a wrestling fan. And it took a long time just from being in high school, and you had people who had these different interests with football and basketball, the NFL and the NBA and all these different sports. And me, I was just a wrestling fan. And nobody really watches, wrestling that much unless they were a closeted fan like I was. And so it was always hard to find my place really and talk about, wrestling, talk about what really interests me the most. But as I've gotten older and I've watched you, a guy who's similar to my age, be proud of, being a fan of it, it kind of helped me in a lot of ways, be proud of watching wrestling, being a fan of it, and just not having those feelings of being ashamed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I was the same way with you. Like, I was never really, like, ashamed of it or anything, but it was kind of just more like, maybe if people don't know, it might be better, or, like, they don't need to know. But, nah, like, over time, it was just kind of been, like, whatever. Like, if people can nerd about Game of Thrones and stuff, or whatever people watch, it's like, there's no difference. At the end of the day, like, I knew, like, I watch sports. I'm really into sports, whether it's soccer, basketball, like, anything. I watch any and every sport. And so for me, it's like, it's not like, I when people say, like, oh, you still watch wrestling, like, it's fake. No shit. Like, I know it's fake. Like, we don't watch it because we think it's real. We watch it because it's just this drama. It's just sports entertainment. And at the end of the day, like, we know that wrestling, when it's working, when it's, like, popping, like, when there's something good going on, there's hard to find anything better than it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, when there's a hot rivalry or, like, anything, just when you're just excited for it, it's unlike anything else. Like, WrestleMania every year just makes you feel like a kid again. And it's like, anything that can make you feel like a kid again, to me, like, why be ashamed of it? Like, it's, you know what I mean? It's just It's fun. At the end of the day, wrestling is fun. And what really helped me was, like, I'm into hip-hop music, and I started seeing all these rappers wear, like, wrestling shirts and do references, and, like, A$AP Yams. I don't know if you, like, know A$AP Rocky and stuff.
Yes.
He was, like, a big wrestling fan. So it's kind of just like, if they like it, I like it. At the end of the day, it's a hobby. It is what it is. And I just kind of, like, went like, all right, fuck it. Like, yeah, I'm Wrestlingifs. I have this Twitter account, this YouTube channel, which I hid from my friends for a long time. But after a while, it's like, at the end of the day, it's just a hobby. There's nothing wrong with it. So, I don't know. For me, over time, it's just been like this. It just became a part of who I am. Because, like, I don't know what's, like, we've been watching it since we were kids, right?
Right.
It is a part of who we are. Like, so many things we've learned because of wrestling. Like, I mentioned in my videos, like, rock. I listened to rap music growing up. I would have known nothing about rock music if it wasn't for, like, theme songs of wrestlers and theme songs of pay-per-views.
Yes.
Like, growing up, all these storylines of wild stuff happening. I wasn't gonna get that from watching cartoons, but like I grew up with wrestling and it shaped me into being who I am. So the least I can do is just be proud to be a wrestling fan, you know?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Shifting back to, hip hop and rap artists who were interested in wrestling. I don't know if you know Wale or his music, but he's from my area. He doesn't live, well, I mean, he moved out of Maryland, but he used to live within the DMV area, and he's a huge wrestling fan. He's been on TV a few times with the New Day and the rap segment with the Usos. He rapped the Street Profits to the ring with NXT, and he's like a big wrestling fan. So that also kind of tells me too, like, if this guy, if he can be a fan of wrestling, then, why can't I, wear my wrestling shirts and be proud of it?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, yeah, I know Wale. I was actually supposed to go to Wale Mania this year, but coronavirus happened. But no,
Yeah.
and even like I don't know if you know like Griselda. So you have like
Yes.
West Side Gun and stuff. Like those guys are as hard as you can imagine. They out here talking about flipping bricks and doing all the dirty shit you can do in the streets, and they're the biggest wrestling fans ever. So like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
If
man.
they can be wrestling fans, like who am I to think like I'm above, like or like I should be ashamed? You know what I mean? If they're out here having
Right.
songs named WrestleMania 20 and like Goldberg versus Undertaker, you know what I mean? Like I
Yes.
don't know, but I also feel like it's easier now once you get older because when you're in high school, man, you're kind of in a different little. You just want to fit in, right? You just want to be, like I don't want to say cool, but you just want to fit in. But once you get older, you're kind of like you probably noticed once you graduated high school, it kind of your friend group starts to shrink. You
Yup.
kind of start caring less about like what other random people think of you, and your real friends they're not gonna give a fuck if you like wrestling or not,
Right.
right?
Yup.
So that I think that plays a factor. So the older you get, the less you start caring.
Definitely, man. And just going back to the stories that keeps us invested, I feel like the last storyline that really, kept me invested was Kofi Mania with Kofi Kingston chasing the WWE Championship. You had this man who, for 11 years, never received the opportunity at the World Championship, and he was being denied after every turn, just hook after hook. It was being taken away from him, and you so badly wanted to see him take down Mr. McMahon, take down Daniel Bryan, and take down everybody who was trying to hold him back. And when he finally won the title at WrestleMania, it was just this big moment, and you loved it, and you were so emotionally invested in it, and we got what we wanted, and it was just so amazing. And I feel like they haven't really created any storylines like that. Maybe with Edge and Orton, but I don't know. I feel like it's kind of ruined in a way, but I feel like Kofi Kingston's storyline was like the last storyline to really draw me in as a wrestling fan and showed me that, this is why I love this.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel like Edge and Orton could have been awesome if it wasn't for the COVID thing. Like, if they had like fans and like the opportunity to hype everything up with the fans and do what they originally wanted to do, I think it would have been special because once that feud started, I was so into it. Like once the RKO hit and then he
Yes.
got the chairs out and then he RKO'd Beth, like I was into it. Like I was like, this is awesome. This is my childhood from the way it started, the Royal Rumble to the RKO's. But yeah, once it's like no crowd. They're gonna have a last man standing match with no crowd, and then it kind of dies down. But that could have been special, and it still kind of is because their Backlash match was great. And once
Yes.
Edge does come back, they're gonna probably have another classic. I hope by then fans are gonna be back allowed. Probably not, but I know what you mean. The Kofi thing was definitely special to me, though. The Kofi thing hit, but it didn't hit like the Daniel Bryan thing to me. Because the thing is, when
Yes.
Kofi was happening, I knew it was gonna happen because I knew they kind of learned their lesson. They kind of were like, you know what, we have this guy Kofi, and they did good like plot twists and stuff with the elimination tags and the gauntlets. Like, yeah, they did really well. But I kind of knew once it started, it was gonna happen, which didn't really take away from it. Like, I still loved when it happened. Like, respect to Kofi Kingston, so happy for him, and the WrestleMania victory with his kids and everything. Like, that's such a touching moment, and especially the video of Shad and MVP crying
Yeah.
when they saw it happening. So, a great moment, but for me, when the original Daniel Bryan storyline happened, that was like every week I was tuning into Raw, like, can he finally do something? Is this finally gonna be the week? Is he finally gonna from that SummerSlam from when John Cena chose him to like WrestleMania, like I was just invested because it
Yes.
was kind of like, yo, are they gonna fuck it up? Are they gonna do this? Like, and the thing is, you didn't know. Whereas for the Kofi thing, it was kind of like they learned their lesson from the Daniel Bryan thing, so you knew they were probably gonna do it. But yeah, that Daniel Bryan thing was just, it was unbelievable, man.
Yeah, man. I can't believe how brain dead the company was because he wasn't even supposed to be in that position. Like, had CM Punk not walked out of the company and the fans had rejected Batista, we would have got Orton versus Batista as the main event of Mania 33 and Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus, fifth match below the card. That would have been our show had none of those events happened. And they would have done that too. They wouldn't have listened to the fans. Like, I seriously think if Punk hadn't have walked out, we would have got Randy versus Batista for the world title with Batista going over.
I don't know. I think they would have figured it out because I like to give. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit. I like to think they would have figured it out, right? I would hope so because, but that was the thing, right? That's what made it so special is you didn't know. Like you didn't know the whole time. You're like, yo, is this company that stupid, or are we the ones getting worked, right?
Yeah.
But I remember like it was a little things. Like first when he lost the title in the cash in, everyone's like, oh, this is the long plan. They're probably just gonna build him up for WrestleMania or something, right? But then the weeks started going by, and like big shows in the main event, and he starts losing all these matches, and you can see they're pushing him away from the main event scene, and you're kind of like, what the like, yo, they're actually doing this? They're not gonna give him the chance. But when you start seeing like, Daniel Bryan wins, like it was like so many magical moments. Like he's winning the Slammy and stuff, and Shawn Michaels like, yo, I hate you. And remember when Mark Henry raised his hand? Like, all the champions were in the ring.
He wasn't actually supposed to do that.
Like, yeah, like little moments like that just made it so much more special. And then the Royal Rumble, he has the great match with Bray Wyatt, doesn't even enter the Royal Rumble. And even though fans were mad when that happened, it just made them want it even more. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like the little moments like raising his hand and like the slammies and then Shawn Michaels screwing him over and then the yes movement when all the fans like rushed to the ring, like yeah, it was planned, or it was scripted, but it was cool, right? And then the whole yes on top of the steel cage, like Daniel Bryan in those months had like the biggest roller coaster ever, but like those like 6-8 months, like one of the best runs in like wrestling history just from like emotional attachment. Like I don't know. I just can't remember the last time I was ever invested like that in wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Like such a magical story, and like it's sad to see how low he fell afterwards with just the injuries and then having to retire and all of that. But like,
the thing is, he probably knows this too, and a lot of people have said this. Him getting injured, like obviously it wasn't good for his health,
right?
But career-wise, it was the best thing that could have happened to him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because if he didn't get injured, they would have treated him like 2006 Rey Mysterio. Like, yeah, they would have made him champion, but no, he's feuding with Kane, and then he's probably going to feud with some other, like, Big Show or something. And then when the matches aren't popping, oh, it's Daniel Bryan's fault. We made him champion, and look at him. He's not drawing. The ratings are going down, this and that. When really, it was them probably not giving him the best feuds. So the fact that it's kind of like, this is going to be a fucking wild analogy, but you know how Tupac died in his prime?
Yes.
Right? And how Biggie died in his prime?
Yeah.
They never had time to fall off. So everyone remembers them as GOATs, which I think they are, but they never had, like, the opportunity to drop, like, that bad album. Like, you know what I mean?
Right, absolutely.
So everyone just remembers them at their peak. Same thing with Daniel Bryan. He reached the peak, and he got injured. So you never got to see him fail, which I don't think he would have, but failing from other factors like bad feuds or bad angles or bad storylines, like it never left that bad taste in your mouth. And then because of that, I think when he did come back, it was kind of like it just worked out for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of like him feuding with Kane for like 5 months.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we shift over to, the first time you ever saw wrestling, who put you onto it, I remember one segment with Bryan where Kane was chasing Bree out of the ring, and like Brian was like, we got to get out of here. We got to go. And, this is the WWE champion. This is the world champion. And he's sitting there trying to start the car and he's trying to run away with Brie. And I remember one of my cousins, we were talking about it, and he was just like, why are they booking him as a coward? Like, why can't you take Brie out of harm's way and you go fight Kane yourself? Like, like
Yeah,
you were booked
yo,
as like,
Bree, run. I
yeah, like,
got this. Let me.
yeah, like you
Yeah,
were.
I know.
It's like you were booked as this hero and you're being a coward and you're running away. Like, it's so
Yeah, like
uncharacteristic of him.
you weren't scared of Triple H, or you weren't scared of Bray Wyatt, you weren't scared of all these like things, and now for some reason you're scared of a washed up Kane.
Exactly, man. Exactly. So, growing up, in Canada, what put you on to wrestling? Who put you onto it when you first saw it?
Yo, for me, man, it's gonna sound, I guess, cliche or whatever, but as long as I can remember, I've always, it's kind of like Goodfellas, always says, I always want to be a gangster. For me, I was always a wrestling fan. Because as a kid, when I was like 2, 3 years old, like I don't remember this stuff, but my older cousin, because we used to live with them, he used to just watch wrestling, and he was like 9, 10 years old, so he's out here watching like the Attitude Era and like 2001, and I don't remember watching it, but everyone, like all my family and stuff, says, "Oh yeah, you used to just sit there and just watch him play like SmackDown on the PS1 and watch the stuff." And I feel like it just got ingrained in my brain, even though I don't remember it.
Yeah.
So then eventually, when I got like 4 or 5 years old and we moved away, I just randomly just started wanting to watch wrestling. I don't remember what it was or like why, but it was just ingrained in my brain because I guess I just saw him watching it so much and I looked up to him, right? Like he was like my older cousin, and I just started watching it. Literally, it was on Sportsnet. That's the channel where it used to come on. I used to just randomly. This was before like TV guides and stuff. Like you just had to pray that you turn on the TV and wrestling was on.
Yes.
So I remember like just randomly, like it'll be like 8 p.m. on like a Sunday, and they're like a Sunday Night Heat or something. I'll just be sitting there, like no idea what's going on, no idea who was who, but I just knew like if my cousin watched this, I should watch it because he's cool, so he must be watching this and it's cool. So I just kind of like watched it, and the earliest memory I have is just like 2003 SmackDown,
Man.
of like fuck what it was like this. It was like A-Train and like these huge guys and like John Cena and just these little like blurbs like that. And I do remember one thing vividly was I was sitting with my mom, 2003, and it's the fucking. It was such a dumb storyline. But do you remember when Vince and like Sable had this little thing going on?
Yeah, man. Yes.
So like I was a little kid. We're in '98, so I was like 5 years old, right? And I just want to watch wrestling, and all I see is Sable and Vince and Linda's in the ring and Steph's in the ring, and I don't know what's going on because I could barely speak English. Like English is not my first language. Like I grew up like first language I learned was Punjabi, and then English. I picked it up after like going to school and stuff, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I barely know what's going on, and then my mom's just sitting there. She's more into it than I am, even though I'm the one who put on wrestling, and I was like, yo, Mom, you can put on your show. You can, whatever you want to watch, whatever Indian channel you want to watch. And she's just watching this like, yo, what the fuck is going on? This guy's cheating on his wife and his daughter's in the ring and like Sable is just wilding. So I remember my mom just watching it. I'm literally trying to convince her, you can change the channel because I was scared some wild shit was going to happen. I thought they were going to start like making out and I didn't want no awkwardness. I'm like, Mom, you can change the channel. She's like, no, don't worry. This is interesting. So that's like one of my first memories is like just Sable and Vince in the ring just fucking wilding out.
Wow.
Weird ass memory, but yeah.
Vince McMahon. I could do a whole episode. We could sit here all day talking about that crazy man.
That guy's a psychopath. But you ever hear of how he pitched an incest storyline between him and Stephanie?
Yes, and literally when she turned it down, he suggested that they do it with her and Shane. And then that's when Shane stepped in and was like, no. And so finally Vince just gave up. They actually
do anything, man.
They actually put out a DVD back in 2006 about like Vince and like his character and like the real Vince McMahon, and like my uncle had the DVD. I remember always going to my uncle's house and watching like the DVDs and stuff like that. And it's like I can't remember some of the stories on there, but it's like you can't even find it on YouTube now or Daily Motion. It's like
Yo,
it's
I
taken
had that.
down.
I had that DVD. I didn't have it. I stole it from my friend. Okay, low key. But I didn't steal the. I didn't steal like the. There was two discs on it. One was a documentary, and one
Yes.
were the matches. I took the matches one, so I never saw the documentary.
Right.
But because of that, I used to watch like Vince versus Hogan at WrestleMania like 50 times, or like him versus Austin in a cage match. So I know exactly what DVD you're talking about.
Yeah. One of the stories that I do remember on the DVD was like Vince hates losing. And so it was him, Stephanie, Shane, and no, it was Vince and Linda versus Stephanie and Triple H at their house, and they're playing pool. And Triple H and Stephanie kept beating Vince, and Vince is just he's starting to get mad, and he keeps saying, rematch. I want a rematch, and they keep beating him, and he's just getting so mad. And in the mansion, they have an intercom, and Stephanie and Triple H just bragging, and that just pisses Vince off even more. And before Vince was going to bed, surprisingly, like the man actually went to bed. Triple H went on the intercom and was bragging again, and that just pissed him off even more. And it just made me laugh so hard.
Vince is a psycho, but the thing about Vince is when it comes to like television, that guy will do anything. He'll get his ass beat by his son. He'll get embarrassed. He'll piss his pants. He'll get stunned. He'll lose every match. Like Vince doesn't win matches, but I guess backstage in his personal life, he just wants to win, win, win. But when it comes to the show, I guess in the grander scheme of things, he knows if he loses, the WWE wins, or I guess the fans win. So it's kind of like whatever, but. It's funny, as a person who is down to lose every match in wrestling, hates losing in real life.
Yeah, I know. I miss his presence on TV when I look back and look at some of the promos he is. One of the greatest promo guys of all time. I think he's one of the best heels that company has ever had, just from his facial expressions and just the way he talked. Like, I remember the other day I was looking at a promo with him and Ric Flair where he said, the next time you lose a match, your career is over. And then there was like a pause and he changed his face and he was like, oh, you didn't hear what I said? I said, the next time you lose a match, your career is over. And I'm just like, man, it's like you felt that.
His expressions were just godly, man. Like he knew how to work a crowd, but it makes sense. Like it was his crowd. He built everything. He knew what worked and what didn't, and he was just a master at that. And his facial expressions were fucking hilarious. Like even when like Austin like would be beating his ass, the way like they would just change, and then when he would be beating Austin's ass, the way it would change. Like he just was always on point.
Yep.
Even like when he was on commentary and stuff, he's a showman. He knows what to do. He's just a natural born showman. It's funny, man. It's funny because he always wanted to be a wrestler because his dad was like, nah, you can't. But now he's arguably like probably one of the most well-known figures in wrestling history.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Before we shift over to my next question, I was reading Chris Jericho's book, and he was talking about the storyline. I don't know if you remember, but it was when Jericho dressed up as Santa Claus, and like, I don't know, it was like Hornswoggle's like little midgets or whatever. They pulled his beard down and they revealed him, and they ganged up on him. So Jericho was like, he was explaining the story of how Vince was pitching this to him, and Vince goes, I'm sure once this makes the air, my dad is going to be rolling in his grave. And Jericho said to him, you're damn right. You're damn right he's going to be rolling in his grave. You booked this shit, basically. And Jericho's like, it just made zero sense whatsoever. But that's just Vince. That's his mind.
Vince, I don't know, man. That guy just thinks like the most random shit is funny. He's just a special character. He's just a special guy, man.
Yeah, I know, man. And thinking about, COVID and how COVID has affected the wrestling business, especially WWE, what kind of void do you think, describe the void that you feel that's been left by John Cena and Roman Reigns? Because Roman's home and Cena's off in Hollywood. So how would you describe that void that's been left by them?
There's a big void. Like John Cena, I'm kind of used to it now because he's been away for a while. But right. Roman Reigns, like at the end of the day, people hate Roman Reigns or they like him. You can't deny that. You put everyone in the WWE roster side by side. Who's the one guy that you would say is a star that has the it factor that is like it's Roman Reigns. You know what I mean?
Roman.
Like he's the guy. Even you can like it, you can hate it. He's the guy, and you always need the guy. When even if you're a sports team or if you're like wrestling, you need someone. You need the go-to. You need the captain, and without that, it just feels empty. You know what I mean? Like wrestling can only be so fun without the guy. Either whether you're hating him, whether you're booing him, or if you're loving him. It's kind of like when people tune into Floyd Mayweather fights, most of them watched because they want to see him lose, but it's still watched, right?
Yeah.
There's a presence. There's a presence when you have the guy, and you need it. And that's just one of the things that's missing right now. But I don't know. Overall, like WWE just feels so empty and like soulless. And it's not because there's no crowd. It's just because I don't know. It's not the way it's structured. Everything about it is just so. Like you watch a Raw from the Attitude Era, which I'm not saying like, oh, the Attitude Era, best era, back in my day, because
Right.
I wasn't even watching back then. I just mean like there was this unpredictability about it. You never knew what was going to open the show. You never knew what was going to close the show. You never knew what was going to happen. But now it's just kind of like the show starts. Welcome to Raw, everybody. Tonight we're going to do this, and then here's a promo, and then here's this. Like, it just feels so structured. A little too much. It feels like everything's just written A to Z. Like, it feels like a TV show, which I know it is, but it doesn't feel like an event.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Definitely. It's weird. Like, I love Drew McIntyre. I love that he's WWE champion. He deserves it. But I feel like he's growing into the role, but we need the fans there, and there's just nothing for him to work with. It's like,
you need the fans there, and what the fuck is Dolph Ziggler gonna do, man?
Exactly.
Who did he verse before this? I forgot who it was.
It was Otis.
Bobby Lashley?
Oh, Drew McIntyre. Yeah, it was Lashley. He faced Lashley.
And it's like, I like Lashley, but he's not what he's supposed to be. He's not being pushed like that. It's just, why am I supposed to care? You know what I mean? I don't care. Whereas you look back so one of the most weird times in wrestling is 2003. Either I love it because it's a part of my childhood, but
Right.
Objectively, I can see why people hate it. They hate it because Triple H, he had this reign of terror, right?
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it was Triple H versus Booker T one month. It's Booker T. You're kind of like, all right, that's pretty cool, right? Then at first it was RVD. You're excited for that. Even though, regardless of what happens, it's RVD. Then it was Scott Steiner. Regardless of how the matches were, you were still hyped because it was Scott Steiner. Then it was Booker T. Regardless of what happened, the ending, Booker T should have won. You were still excited because it was Booker T.
Yeah.
And then Kevin Nash came back. And then Goldberg was in the main event. Like, even though the product, I guess, sucked main event-wise, you know what I mean? And the matches weren't good, it was still, like, star power there. You know what I mean? It was still like, oh, shit, Booker T might do something. Like, Goldberg's here. And then, like, Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels. And then, like, Randy Orton became a star. Whereas now it's just, like, it's been like this for so long. Like, same thing happened with Kofi Kingston. Same thing happened with Daniel Bryan when he became champion. Even, like, Seth Rollins. Whenever someone becomes a champion, what the fuck do they do after that? Because there's literally nobody left.
Exactly.
So, like, that's going to generate the interest, right? You don't have Booker T's and Kevin Nash's and, like, regardless of Kevin Nash in 2003, it's still Kevin Nash. He was still a star. You know what I mean? Still, people know who Kevin Nash was.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas now it's like, how am I supposed to take Ziggler seriously or a Lashley or a washed-up Kane? Like, who cares? Nobody cares. And that's just it's the name of the game, man. This is where WWE has been victim of the past 10 years of their inability to make stars.
Mm-hmm.
Because they made a bunch of mid-carders, and when it's time for the guy who finally does become a star, or is trying to become a star, he just ends up versing mid-carders. So Drew McIntyre versus Dolph Ziggler just feels like a mid-card match.
Exactly.
Whereas let me just say one more thing. Whereas before it was kind of like you had stars from WCW, you had stars from ECW, you had WWF's own stars. Like, they made Kurt Angle, right? Like, they made Chris Jericho. They made them into who they were.
Right.
So when it was time for, like, say, I don't know, like, whoever became champion, there was so many people for them to verse. But now it's like they haven't made stars. You can't really verse anyone. And then everyone, it's just a mess, man. They fucked up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, I always believe in my mind that if they just put all their eggs in one basket with Cena, and Punk could have been that perfect second top guy on Cena's level. Like I always believe that he could have been the Austin to Cena's Rock. And not
You know, the
saying
thing is, they were though. Like they did fine. Like I think I can't blame Cena's run because at the end of the day, when Cena was doing his thing, everyone he was kind of versing was pretty established, and they were fine. Like he versed Edge, he
yeah,
versed Jericho, CM Punk, Randy Orton, like whatever. He was fine. Where they messed up was 2013-ish. That's when, or like 2011-ish. That's when they just really started. Like we have Cena, the Shield debuts. These are our guys. Fuck everybody else.
exactly.
Right? They just couldn't transition away from Cena. It wasn't during Cena. I feel like that 2012, 2013, 14, 15, that's where it just kind of slipped up. And then you have Dean Ambrose saying, I don't want to do this anymore. And then you have Roman Reigns, who he's not Cena, right? Like, he's not. And then it's just, this is void. That's where they messed up. And the thing is, if CM Punk was there, sure, it would have been better, but it's just, they just never, you know how they had the Shield? They needed to do that with, like, 6, 7 other guys. And I don't
Exactly.
mean like, make a trio of like 6, 7 guys. I mean like elevate other people too. You can't just have the Shield and be like, this is our future, or maybe, Bray Wyatt. You gotta elevate more people.
Exactly.
And the thing is, they call up these people like Kevin Owens and stuff. They do, but I don't know what it is. I just don't understand. Like before, they used to have like Jericho, Benoit, Eddie. Like these were guys they bring in from other companies, which I guess you could say the same thing. They bring up independent wrestlers. It was just different. They just made them into stars, whereas now everyone just feels the same. And I don't know, we could write a whole essay on this at the end of the day. It's just everything just feels so structured. Everything feels the same. Everyone wrestles the same. It's just the same damn old WWE formula, which we love wrestling, so we're going to keep watching it.
And they know that, and they abuse that every time.
It's just becoming so formulaic and just so, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Tough times.
Yeah, I know. My one question I have for you is, do you think the lack of charisma from these current guys is what is preventing them from getting over to that next level? Because, I mean, guys like Jericho and Angle, even Benoit to an extent. Benoit wasn't a great promo, but he had that silent intensity.
Right?
Yes.
Exactly. He had something about him. And then even, like, who else from that time period? Like Booker T.
Yeah, Booker T. Yup.
Right? Who else?
Eddie, Rey Mysterio.
Rey Mysterio for sure. And then, fuck, man. Brock Lesnar, of course.
Yes.
Brock Lesnar. But even, like, Edge. Do you remember mid-card Edge?
Yeah, I do remember mid-card Edge.
Bro, he didn't fucking feel like a mid-carder. Like, you know what I mean? He didn't. Like, he came off as a star. That's the thing. It was just, I don't know if it's the charisma, because I feel like, I don't know. Maybe it is a charisma, but at the same time, maybe it's just they don't have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? But I also do think it's just everything's so forced. So it's like no matter who's cutting the promo, they all feel the same.
Yeah.
The only difference is the voice that's coming out of. Like Kevin Owens is going to sound a little different than Seth Rollins, but they're probably going to say the same shit anyway. I don't know. It was just a different time. I don't know. What would you say? Do you think it's the ability, like the opportunity? Do you think wrestlers were just better then, or do you think it's just they don't have the opportunity?
I think it just cuts both ways. Like I look at last night with Ricochet and Cedric Alexander, they were cutting this promo, and it's just like it's just cringe. Like these guys, like they're obviously not promo guys, and I think they would have benefited from staying in NXT a bit longer and taking those promo classes, working on their skills, maybe taking an acting class and working on like their promo abilities. I don't know. Maybe that's.
The thing is, you know what it is, man. You don't even. I don't. The thing is, if I'm I'm nobody. I don't work for no wrestling company. But if I'm looking for wrestlers, I don't want actors.
Right. Exactly.
Just because then it's too forced, bro. I just need just wrestle and just pretend it's real. Whatever is natural, just let it happen. That's why I don't understand why they're scripting these promos so much or everything's so formulaic. Just let it go, man. Just let it go. And I feel like that's what they used to do. Hey, Austin, cut a promo tonight. Like obviously, Rock and Austin are goats, but
right.
Just let it go. Just let it flow. And I feel like it would be so much better. But now it's like Cedric or Ricochet. I didn't watch last night, but let me guess. They probably came out Who were they versing?
They faced. I didn't watch it either. I saw a clip. They faced MVP, Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin because Shelton
And
won the
then they had
24/7
Mustafa came
title,
up with them, right?
and then Mustafa Ali came back too last
Yeah.
night, and they were just
So let
like,
me guess. They probably went out there, yo, you guys are losers. You were not the real United States champion. How about you versus me and my buddy, and we'll have one more person. Like it's just, you know what's gonna happen.
exactly.
You,
It's
like, right? Why should we care?
exactly.
No, it's
So
I don't know. Whereas if this was like 2002 or something, I don't know. It just would have been popping. It just would have been exciting. It just would have been like I don't know. They used to be just fun, man. Like you had random feuds like Edge versus Kurt Angle, loser gets their head shaved and shit. Now we have how are we supposed to take eye for an eye serious? You know what I mean?
where the only way to win is to extract the eyeball from your opponent. Oh,
like I remember like I was watching an old Raw from '98, and the storyline was it's gonna be Austin versus Kane in a first blood match, and if Kane loses, he's gonna set himself on fire, which is pretty fucking stupid, right? Whatever, like it's pretty outrageous, but it's kind of like
it's kind of intriguing too.
It's like, oh shit, a first blood match? Yo, this guy's a mask on. What is he gonna do? And he's versing Austin, and Austin's a badass, Kane's a badass. Now it's like, yo, we hate each other. My family hates you. You hate my family. Eye for an eye. We're gonna take each other's eye out. Like, you can only suspend your disbelief so much,
right?
But I don't know. I just think at this point they're just throwing a bunch of shit at the wall to see what's gonna stick.
I know, man. I feel so bad for the kids because this is what they're growing up on. I'm talking like the 5-year-olds, elementary school age. I feel so bad for them because this is what they're gonna remember about wrestling, and they're probably gonna talk about how
The
much.
thing is, though, they're probably gonna love it though. That's the fucking weird part. It's just they're gonna be in like 10 years. Yo, you're gonna go in YouTube comments. Oh man, remember when Rey Mysterio lost his eye? That was so crazy. I was so scared. What a fun night. Because it's just a cycle, bro. It's just a cycle that always just goes on, and I found myself a victim of it too. For me, my golden era was always like '02 to 2008, prime. Fuck it, wrestling is my love. That nothing will ever beat that wrestling, right?
Definitely.
And then I knew that in 2010, like 2010, 2011, 2012, I discovered the internet, and I knew. And I used to say, like, yo, wrestling was better back in my day. Even though it was, like, 14, 15 back then. Like, I still said that, right? Bro, fast forward to 2020, and I'm out here thinking, like, yo, 2011, 2012, WWE was pretty fucking lit. Like,
yeah, man.
So, like, it's just, nostalgia is a crazy thing. And then it even furthers even more. Now I'm like, yo, 2014, 2015, like, yo, even 2016 SmackDown, like, yo, it was pretty
Oh my gosh, 2016 SmackDown.
When it was happening, like, I knew it was fun, but there's no way I would have believed, oh, hey, in like 5 years, you're going to think about 2016 SmackDown as one of the greatest periods of your wrestling viewing life. Like, get out of here. No. But 5 years later, bro, the nostalgia, it hits you, man. It's a weird thing. It's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, I know. I was born in 2000, so I actually caught wrestling right at the beginning of the PG era. But thankfully, I was about 2 years, like 3 or 4 years removed from the Ruthless Aggression era. So I always had those DVDs my uncle had, and I always had the video games, SmackDown vs. Raw, 06, 07, 08. And so I was able to get myself hip to those guys from the Ruthless Aggression era. And I was just like, you know what? I feel like that is my period of wrestling that I love so much, that Ruthless Aggression period. I didn't get into the Attitude Era until I got to middle school when WWE 13 came out. And I was just like, Attitude Era? Like, I know about Stone Cold and The Rock, Undertaker, but who's, Billy Gunn or Road Dogg, I don't hear about them on TV, so I gotta check this out. And so I feel like those are my golden periods in the early part of the PG era from 08 to SmackDown in 09. I wouldn't say Raw in 09, I probably loved it as a kid, but looking back with those guest hosts and everything, it was awful.
For my peak, like if I were to choose, it's definitely 04, 05, 06, and 07. Like, but mostly 04, 05, 06, because that was when, like, I was old enough to remember everything, and I was old enough to know what I was watching, but I was still young enough to, like, just be lost into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was born in 98, so by '04, I was like 6 years old, and like I know some people don't really remember what they were doing when they were six, but yo, shit, me, I remember everything. But like I remember like it was a little moments, man. Like in '06, in '04, I remember Randy Orton became champion, and they had the storyline where it was Survivor Series '04. If Randy Orton's team wins, he runs Raw for a month, and like each wrestler runs Raw for a month. And it was like I'm like, wow, the wrestlers are gonna run Raw, and they had like Elimination Chamber, and then Batista turned on Triple H, and then John Cena became champion. Like I remember it so vividly, and that was just my peak, bro. Like I remember one of my favorite wrestling moments of all time is when John Cena got drafted to Raw.
Oh yeah.
I was sitting there watching Raw, and John Cena was my favorite wrestler ever of all time to this day. He was a SmackDown guy. I never thought he was going to show up on Raw, so I'm just watching Raw, 9 p.m. Spike TV. All you see, fucking John Cena comes on Raw, and I'm just a little kid losing my mind. Like that was just the peak. Then '06 when Edge became my arch enemy, and like those 3 years, that was just it. For some reason, it just hit different.
Yeah,
the video games played a factor.
Yes.
The DVDs, like you said, everything, the music, just wrestling. And for me, another big factor was during those times, like wrestling was hard to come by for me because it was fucking weird. I didn't get the official channel for Raw until the John Cena draft night. So it was my first time watching a full episode of Raw, and all you see is John Cena comes out. So that definitely was the greatest day of my life. But from '04 to that night, the only way I watched Raw wrestling was, one, I had my uncle like record the episodes on a VHS, and I would watch it on the weekend. So he would literally have like a bunch of VHSs recorded for me. But the other thing was they had recap shows.
Yeah.
I think it was called in Canada, in other countries. I don't think they had it in America, but they had Afterburn for SmackDown and they had Bottom Line for Raw, and they had a show called the WWE Experience, right? And like there were just 1 hour recap shows, and that's all I had. And the fucking dumb part was, in Canada they didn't have like a schedule. It wasn't like, hey, every like Saturday at this time it was gonna be Afterburn for SmackDown or Bottom Line, bro. I had to like look at TV Guide in the morning like it was a religion and praying that tonight was the night that the show was going to air, because they only aired it when they had nothing else to air.
Wow.
So like I would be like fiending like, please can I watch wrestling today? Please can I watch it? And when it would happen for that 1 hour, it would be the greatest thing of my life. It's little things like that where like now kids these days, they have access to YouTube, but they can watch whatever they want when they want. Like it doesn't really matter, right? But back then it was so scarce and so like such a like big thing. Like, wow, I'm watching wrestling today. I don't know, just little things like that just make it my peak, right? Like my era.
That's what's up, man. And so before I shift over to, you starting the YouTube channel, creating that wrestling content, it just sprang into my mind when you were talking about the peak of wrestling from '04 or '03 to '06. During that time, the passing of Eddie Guerrero happened. And since you were deep into the product at that point, when his passing happened, how did that affect you?
Bro, I was watching it live. Like I watched the episode live when it happened, when they announced he died. And it's a crazy story. I was at my friend's house this Saturday, right? I was at my friend's house where I remember everything. We're playing, he's in front of me, we're playing with Hot Wheel tracks. So you remember those fucking Hot Wheel tracks? So we're playing with the Hot Wheel tracks.
Oh yeah, man.
And Survivor Series was coming up, '05, and it was SmackDown versus Raw, and we were SmackDown guys through and through, and we're like, oh, I can't wait for Survivor Series, man. SmackDown's going to destroy them. We have Batista on our team. We have Eddie. And then his cousin was over. And, like, we didn't really have computers back then. Like, we didn't really use them or whatever. Like, the only way we ever got on the computer was at school, and we would sneakily go on WWE.com, and, like, hopefully the teacher didn't walk by.
Same.
So we didn't really know anything. And then his cousin walks by, Eddie Guerrero, he's dead. And we're like, it's a Saturday. And we're like, nah, it could be Sunday. I don't remember for sure, but like
Sunday.
Yeah, whatever, man. Sure. Like, how the fuck would he know if Eddie Guerrero is dead? And like, how could Eddie die? What wrestler is gonna die? We're like 7 years old. Wrestlers don't die. Like, what are you talking about? We live happily ever after. Nothing happened. Play with our Hot Wheel tracks. We go home. Next night, turn on Raw. There's no intro. You know how normally they have like the intro when I get excited, the theme song plays.
Yep.
There's no intro. There's no nothing. All the wrestlers are on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Guerrero has passed away. Benoit's crying, Triple H is crying, and I'm like, I started crying, bro. I was like 7 years old, and I started crying because I'm seeing all my heroes cry, and it was the first time death really affected me. Never had an uncle die or a grandma or anything. Like, I didn't know death, right? Like, I didn't know anything about death. I knew it was like, yeah, I killed people in San Andreas. Fuck, there's a video game. I don't know shit about death.
Right.
And I'm here watching, like, this wrestler who I watched every week, one of my favorites. That's it. Like, I'm never seeing him again, and I was just there crying. Like, it was crazy, man. Like, it was, like, of course I got over it. I was a kid. You get over shit when you're a kid. But
yeah.
It was a wild night, man. Like, I'm just sitting there, like, my mom was about to go to sleep. Dad's was doing his thing. I'm just sitting there because I had my own TV, basically. I'm just there crying. And nobody, I don't want to say nobody cares, but nobody knew what happened. My parents, they don't watch wrestling. They don't know who died. They don't know what's going on. And I'm just stuck. So it was just me and the TV. I'm crying and wrestlers crying. Like, it was just a wild thing to think about now. But definitely affected me, man. He was one of my favorite wrestlers. Even though I hated him at the end because him and Ray had that beef over Dominic.
Oh, yeah.
But he was always one of my favorites.
Yeah, I remember my uncle was telling me about it because I asked him, and he grew up as a teenager, junior and senior in high school throughout the Attitude Era. So he was a big, WWF fan, WCW fan, and he always watched Eddie. And so he was in his early 20s when he passed. And at that point, he was on and off of wrestling just because of how everything changed when WCW folded back in '01. And so when he found out Eddie passed in '05, he was just like, that was the end of wrestling for me. That was just the downfall for me because Eddie was he was that guy. And just without him is just, I can't see a world in wrestling without Eddie anymore. And then the Benoit stuff happened, and it was just, I can't imagine losing one of these guys on the roster now and thinking about what kind of void they would leave if they were just to pass away like Eddie. So it was crazy.
Yeah, man, it was just I didn't really know how much of a big deal it was as a kid because even though I was crying and stuff, like I said, I didn't know anything about death, right? Like, it was just kind of like, oh, he's dead. I'm sad. But now when you think about it now, like how big it was, like a wrestler, like not in his prime, but it's like, I don't even want to say anything. I don't even want to compare it to anything that could happen these days because it's so bad. But just like, imagine a wrestler just wins at WrestleMania one year, not main event, but closes out WrestleMania, and the next year is dead. Like, it's like, what the fuck, bro? Like, it's huge. It's crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
And I don't even want to get into the Benoit thing, but like,
definitely not. Mm-mm.
We didn't know because we were kids. But
right.
Imagine if we were adults back then. Imagine how much more it would have affected us.
Crazy, man. And so my final questions to you before I go ahead and wrap up with you. When you think about your YouTube channel, how much has it truly changed your life in the past year and a half since you've been putting out content and your subscribe numbers have been going up and people have been giving you so much support for what you do?
Yo, man, it's crazy. I was talking to, I talk to my mom a lot about this YouTube stuff just because I'm an only child, right? So I don't really have, like, siblings or anything like that, so my mom's just been my go-to for a while. It's like, oh, Mom, I made a YouTube channel, and then a few months later, I got these many views. Like, I always kind of just kept her in the loop and stuff, and I was just talking to her, I'm like, yo, it's been a year, basically, since my YouTube really started popping off.
Yeah.
Right? One of my videos, 2K14,
yes,
a year ago, just blew up one day, and because of that video, I am where I am. Like, that's kickstarted everything, and I'm like, if it wasn't for that video, because what happens, it blew up, and I'm like, all right, now's my time to shine. Now I got to start pumping out content because I have eyes on me. I'm going to get recommended maybe, like, whatever, right? But I'm just like, yo, if it wasn't for that video, if it wasn't for YouTube, what would I have done for the past year? Like, what? Because now for the past year, it's been like, oh, I got a video to make. What's the next video going to be about? I got to make a video. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to record my audio. I'm going to do... Everything's been rotating on a video. Like, I have an exam. Okay, I'll study these days. I'll make a video these days, right?
Yeah.
Next week, I'll make that video. I got work. Before work, I'm going to do this. After work, I'm going to do that. During work, I'm going to write my script. Like, everything was centered around YouTube. And I'm like... And a year's passed now, and I'm like, bro, what was I doing before this? Like, was I just sitting around playing video games all day? Was I just, like, what? Like, I don't know. It just blows my mind. Like, a year has passed, and I just can't, like, I can't really imagine life without it now, without putting out content without making videos per week, it's weird, man. It's insane. Like, I can't believe a year has passed, but it's changed my life a lot, man. It's taught me a lot of I've never thought I would make it this far. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty crazy. I never thought I'd make it this far, and I'm still trying to go further, but it's just this weird thing where I'm like, yo, I can't believe this has happened, and I can't believe, like what was I doing before this? Was I really just sitting around all day? Like, what? I can't imagine life without it now. It's weird. Like, it's I don't know how to explain it properly. It's just been a wild experience.
Got you, man. That's awesome. And so my final question to you is, what piece of advice would you give to someone out there who's looking to put out content and produce content for a hobby that they love, whether it's wrestling or not?
Yo, honestly, I used to read cause the thing is, before my channel really started popping off, before, like, I always had dreams. I always had these goals. I was always like, yo, man, I have my Twitter account that I made back in high school. One day, I'm going to make something out of it. You know, one day I'm going to make a YouTube channel. Like, I made my first YouTube video that was wrestling related in December of 2017. Nobody watched it. It was garbage. I made some videos in 2018. Nobody gave a shit about, like, nobody cared. Whatever, right? So it wasn't like this journey. It wasn't like this one day I woke up and I just blew up. No, it took some while. I had a lot of flops. I had a lot of learning to do. But my best experience would be, like, I read a lot of books and audiobooks and stuff. And do you know who Charlemagne the God is?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
So he had this audiobook, Black Privilege, and I listened to that audiobook, like, I don't know, probably like 10 times in my life, like, just nonstop. For some reason, it's just like this super motivational, like, real down-to-earth advice from a guy you don't know, which was always cool to me. But he just basically said this thing in his book, and it's like, if you just put out the content and it's quality content, people will find you. Eventually, if it's good content, you will make something out of it. And that was always just my motto. It was like, all right, man, if I just make content, if I just make good content, eventually someone's going to find it. And I just kept telling myself that, like, all right, yo, like, what? Because I can't really do more than that. You know what I mean? Nobody can. All you can really do is just make good content. And if it's really good, people will find it. There's only so much, hey, buddy, can you go watch my video? Hey, man, can you go, like, share this on your story? Because at the end of the day, that doesn't mean anything. Nobody cares about that. How many times has someone shared something on their story and have you clicked on it to see what they shared? Like a song. Not often, right?
Right.
So there's only so much that you can do of promoting, which, of course, you should do. I don't want to stunt, but I didn't really do that, to be honest. I just did my thing. But that's just what it boils down to, and I firmly believe that. Charlemagne told that to me, and if I'm supposed to tell someone, like, I would tell it to you, I'll tell it to other people. It's just, you make good content, people will find you, something will come out of it. At the end of the day, that's all you can really do is make good content. You can make some bullshit clickbait content, it might get some views, and sure, you might even make a career out of it because you know people have, but if you want to do it the right way, or if you want to do it your way, and you want to make a way where you make a community, like, I feel like I've made a nice Wrestlingifs community in the comment sections and, like, the videos and whatever. Just make quality content, and if it's meant to be, honestly, it's meant to be, it'll pop off. Like, that's all I can really say. It might sound dumb, it might sound, it's easy for you to say, but that's just always what it's been for me, and that's what works for me. And that's what I do to this day, where it's like, yeah, I make videos where some of them get more views than the other ones, but it's always just been like, yo, that's all I can do. Make good content. If it's going to pop off, it pops off. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least the one person who watches, they'll recognize that I made some good content.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. I definitely do agree with that. And I just want to, once again, thank you so much for, just giving me the time to just speak with you. And I remember I texted you like this big list of questions, and you were like, LOL, bro, just chill out with the questions. Don't worry about the questions. Just let everything be natural when we speak, and just don't worry about it. Everything is going to turn out right. And I think this conversation went really well. We could have went hours just talking about wrestling, but I'm so grateful that I had the time that I did to speak with you, man. And just thank you so much.
Yeah, man, no worries, man. That's just how I approach a lot of things, right? Like, yo, just honestly, just go with the flow. Like, even when you're doing your podcast thing, don't overthink it. Go with your gut instincts. Whatever you think is good content, whatever you want to do, however you want to brand it, just go with it, right? Like I said, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But yeah, man, for sure, this was a fun conversation. Honestly, it means a lot for you to even ask me to be here because, yeah, it might seem like, oh, look, wrestling has 58,000 subscribers and followers, blah, blah, blah. I don't feel like that. I still feel like the same guy who was last year making videos in my room. The only difference now is I make videos in my basement. Like, I feel like the same guy. So just the fact that people want to put me on their platform that I've never met before, like I've never met you before, I never talked to you before, but the fact that you want me on your platform, it means a lot to me. So thank you for this, man. Good luck with your podcast. I hope one day you blow up. Not even blow up, whatever you want it to be. I hope that happens. But yeah, man, thank you. It really means a lot.
Yes, sir, man. Thank you for being here, and I will definitely keep in touch with you, and I'll catch you down the road one day, Pav.
For sure, man. Have a good night. Stay safe out there, and yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.